Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with the 28th episode of our first run through Book of Hours playing as the artist. And we're actually kind of pulling an all-nighter, not unlike how I spent my last couple of weeks at my old job. Reading The Radical Measure. Now, what's interesting for me, I'm really looking forward to reading this particular book because in my other playthrough, the one that I'm about to complete, I only have the glossed version of The Radical Measure. So the idea is Aaron Peel wrote this very complicated... Actually, it's present inside of this this description here. But basically, Peel writes this very hard to read and very apparently rushed text about poetry. And Christopher Alopoli provided an edition with his own sort of glosses and edits. And I believe I'm assuming it is because of The Radical Measure. We have... Oh, do I not have the... Sorry, I went down to the room where I'm keeping this one. I may not have just verse, but Christopher Alopoli, in addition to writing Traveling at Night, also has a collection of poetry called Just Verse. So, needless to say, The Radical Measure is the original one is something I'm kind of interested in, but I haven't had the opportunity to read it yet. So I'm interested in seeing what comes out the other end. Sorry, it just occurred to me that might be taken in a slightly different way. I'm interested to see what the result of the reading the text will be. Okay. I forgot that I ended early in the evening, so there's going to be a little bit of a wait while everything gets going. Though it did just occur to me that I don't think I'm carrying something overnight, so let's take that... Oh, I can't take the intuition, but I can take the gossip. Now the night is fallen, I can rest and perhaps dream on the day's doings. Okay, memories fade, assistance departs, but the soul is refreshed. Now, I may not get much use out of Mrs. Kill, but I still think it's nice to... First of all, it's just nice to talk with people. But number two, it's also, I don't really have an immediate use for this Arab right away, so I'll get the work... I'll set myself up, and in the worst case, I'm just down an element of the soul, which I can get back for a tuppence. Mrs. Kill stands ready to help. You always cheer me up, she says morosely. Now, what I probably want to do is get a hindsight or regret, because I believe we are quite close to being able to read the Barrowchild's elegies. So if we go for Whist here, then we could take Quenchings and Quellings, which I think is my highest winter skill. And then we would attach that. Well, so right now we don't have a memory to attach it to, and we need 10. So we'll read irrelevant text. And I think I'm going to sit... Actually, I can use the FET in this case, because if I want to read the Radical Measure, I'm going to need the Horizon Sight, and that, of course, will involve talking with the Stimfling and so on and so forth. So let's use Natan's desk with a FET to get the hindsight or regret. And we can read... Let's do Nin's Cages. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. Now, I'm going to get some more grapes just for the start, because we're going to wind up talking to the Stimfling again pretty soon. Pluck the grapes from the vine. And then with the tryst, we will feed Terence, resentful Terence, something to make him pipe down. Satisfy this creature's appetite. Food will make a hungry beast or a wild one cooperative. Okay, now the last thing I've got is Black Book of Brittany. Now that should be something that I can read. Actually, hang on, I may not be able to read it because I'm using the lunar globe elsewhere. Let me just verify that. So Sickle and Eclipse is my best one. I needed 12. Okay, hang on. Why did I think I could read this one? So I'll be up to 9, but I need 12. Well, I suppose one easy answer here would be the cat wink. Nope, but even that would just bring me up to 11 with the memory. Okay, well, that's still not a major hardship, but what I am going to do is I'm going to wait for the relevant memory. And I don't believe we kept the intuition, I believe we kept the gossip, so that's not going to give me one. Okay, so I don't think I'm going to work hard to get Black Book of Brittany, but it will be one that I keep an eye on. Excuse me. Sunny day. The sun is not what it was, but today he is smiling. Mrs. Gill stands ready to help. You always cheer me up, she says morosely. I carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. So, not too much to do with this right now, but I like keeping the option open. Should probably put the tea down somewhere. Do I have a tea in the library? I do. Okay, maybe we'll just keep that there then. The Radical Measure, Manifesto for Experimental and Dangerous-Sounding Invocatory Poetry, written and sometime in the 19th century by Dr. Aaron Peel, a notoriously inconsistent and incoherent text, apparently produced in a tearing hurry. The hours have little time for poetry, Dr. Peel avers, but they have a tremendous amount of time for poets. As the rose opens, Dr. Peel explains, an enduring memory opens to the horizon. So this is the one that we just learned. This is a way of saying something that cannot otherwise be said and is best only written with one's eyes firmly closed. So in this case here, we've got the horizon sight from the Stimfling, and then we did learn how to make an enduring memory. Still, not a huge problem, especially because we now have preliminal meter to play around with, which will give us some extra rows, which gives us greater access to rosy things when the time comes. But first things first, let's handle the pattern. And I think I want to get on top of that right away. So preliminal meter will require knock and rows. Now, unfortunately, I've already used up the rows in this case. But if I wind up with that many memories, it won't be a hardship to restore it. And actually, it won't be that hard to get there at all. I suppose the drawback is that this does keep me behind on rows. So my best right now gives me 3. And that's exactly what preliminary meter is going to give me in the end. But I don't know. I'm still not 100%. I still don't feel 100% on pulling back on a few of my skills just so I can advance another one. There's essentially right now there are other things that I can do to try and give myself an edge on accomplishing certain things in the game. So I may change my mind on this, but for now I think I'm okay with leaving preliminal meter as it is. Or sorry, I'm fine with leaving the rows as it is and then moving preliminal meter up. But this does also mean I've got a much easier time leveling this thing up. So we can probably just start with a gossip right away. So there's always more to learn. Improve the skill to level 2. This will increase its aspects, which will help with crafting and make it suitable for higher branches of the Tree of Wisdoms. Now, I did forget to commit something to the Sweet Bones, but that's fine because I'll just be able to restore my shaft in a minute, and then we can get the cycle going. Okay, full belly makes a helpful friend. So I do want to get that horizon sight back. So we'll have a chat with the Stimfling. I don't want to use the whist here, so let's go for the metal. Time with the beastie. Offer this beast my company. Who knows? Perhaps it will offer something in return. And Nin's Cages. The Merciful Measures of the Witch Nin. This is only a partial version of the original, but it contains illustrations by Nin's pupil, Maybelline of Bruges, which supplement the original. Nin's stated aim was to keep beyond the walls of sleep that business which should not trouble the world. This includes fever, madness, and delirium, as well as spirits identified as devourers and deceivers. Maybelline clearly enjoyed drawing both devourers and deceivers, but was less interested in illustrating disease symptoms. Nin warns against invoking the edict's liminal or inviolable before sleep, for no matter how secure the lock might be, its key will surely open it. Maybelline has helpfully illustrated this by drawing a sleepwalker clambering through an open window about to leap into the jaws of a sea monster. The sea monster is goggle-eyed with happy anticipation. So we're now going to read the Barachild's Elegies. I can master this mystery. And again, depending on how the day shapes up, I suppose I should probably... I'll probably use the Arab to get a rose memory. That's a gossip shelf, right? Yeah. My skill is now level 2. Its power aspects have also increased. So I'm still kind of holding out hope we might be able to do something with the moon, but I'm probably a little too optimistic here. It is spring and the landlady has served me a slice of her stargazy pie with the pilkered heads poking cheekily through the hot crust. Yeah. Wait a minute. What did I restore? Fat? That's fine, it'll still work, but it should have been shopped. Okay. And now it's just Emil would be welcome. We will get it an egg when the time comes, but for now I'm gonna get the egg. Tuppence, the other chicken. Tuppence's most notable quality, all observers will agree, is that she is not Terence. Offer this beast my company. Who knows? Perhaps it will offer something in return. Okay, not ready to draw something up from the well. So yeah, as far as moon things go, I don't know. Even at the halfway point of the day. Well, I guess at the halfway point of the day, we do the same thing that we did with the radical measure. We just read it overnight. The Humours of a Gentleman, Samuel Savage's satirical comedy on the intrigues of the ailing but cunning John's son, his mistress Mavelyn, her lover Leo, and the upstart Corvino. By the end of the first act, Mavelyn has revealed a secret door in the walls of the house to Leo, and Corvino has taken to consuming worms. The play is scabrous and occasionally hilarious. The characters are contrary and capricious. Many of the more resonant lines might well be formula of power disguised in plain sight. Gossip, frivolous but tasty. Better know. Okay, so we can level up preliminal meter to where we wanted it. And like I said, it feels a little silly to do it this way just because it doesn't give me a direct benefit, but I try where I can. So the main drawback here is I can see this style of play on my part as being a little bit of an overcorrection for a tendency which I do try to avoid. So there's a way of playing any given game, or even just doing tasks in life, where you're really only dealing with sort of the immediate problem in front of you, right? So I guess this maybe gets, I guess this is kind of like when people are talking about separating the the important from the urgent, I guess. Although I think it's kind of communicating two slightly different things. But then, of course, there can be decisions that you make to solve an individual problem, which aren't necessarily good in terms of long-term solutions. So I'm not a very, I'm not a particularly gifted programmer, but I can certainly think of times where I've sat down and I've written something which is intended to solve, an immediate problem that I'm handling, and then maybe I want to reuse that, or maybe I come back to it later. And of course, that's usually the time that I realize that, okay, this is something that was written to solve this very specific thing that I encountered, and actually it's rather difficult to adapt this to other purposes. And so in this case here, the one thing that I do want to avoid is saying, okay, well, the immediate problem I have in front of me is I want to try and get some higher level Rose books. So I'm going to find the Rose skill that I have and level this up as high as I can. So it's like, okay, well, that might mean Path and Pilgrim, that might mean Pearl and Tide. There's a couple of different candidates. But of course, it's not just simply that this would have some implications as to whether or not there's higher scale or higher moon that get leveled up. It would also carry with it the consequence that, depending on the skill that I choose, there's going to be some recipes that are easier for me to make than others. Now, I don't think this game is designed thinking that you will level up skills related to, I don't think it's designed thinking that you're going to always use preliminal meter on preliminal meter, for instance. But it just happens to be a simpler way for me to think about the problem, and because I'd rather spend the time thinking about other things, that's kind of the way I've wound up playing, no matter what. And part of that also just is also a reflection of the fact that I feel reasonably confident that I can get past most of the challenges that I run into. So when it comes down to it, like the idea that, okay, I'm short Rose for the next little while, it's not my favorite thing to deal with, right? I don't sit down and say, oh goody, I'm facing a shortage. But on the other hand, I also don't see it as a complete deal breaker. Like I don't think that I'm going to have the playthrough come to a grinding halt as the result. So I'm still insistent that I'm going to be able to get everything I want done during the day. So we'll feed Tuppence. Actually, you know what? I don't think I'm going to wind up talking with Mrs. Kill after all. It's going to take us a minute with the chicken. It's going to take us a minute with the Stimfling. And then the sun will go down. Ah, well. So I guess that means I can use the Tryst. The Barrowchild's Elegies. The Barrowchild, a Gaulish adept who won a place in the ranks of the Ordo Lamea, enumerates the great shadows laid to rest in the tombs of power, and discusses their various conditions. The Barrowchild identifies numerous modes that are neither true death nor true life: the vitrification of the heart, the corrupt light of the wood, core stasis, the wandering of the fet. The Barrowchild warns particularly of the avidity of Tryst, where a remnant shadow's longing for change survives its sense of self and even devours its wist. That longing may draw the curious into the tomb, where the remnant shadow changes so that it cannot be distinguished from its visitor, or that the reverse becomes true, and that it is never again possible to say whether it is the shadow or the visitor that exits the tomb. Okay. So there are definitely things that would fit these descriptions in here. So I want to read this again and maybe see if I can parse something new out. I don't think I will, but the Barrowchild's Elodie. The Barrowchild, a Gaulish adept who won a place in the ranks of the Ordo Lamea, enumerates the great shadows laid to rest in tombs of power and discusses their various conditions. The Barrowchild identifies numerous modes that are neither true death nor true life: the vitrification of the heart, the corrupt light of the wood, core stasis, the wandering of the fet. The Barrowchild warns particularly of the avidity of Tryst, where a remnant shadow's longing for change survives its sense of self and even devours its wist. That longing may draw the curious into the tomb, where the remnant shadow changes so that it cannot be distinguished from its visitor, or that the reverse becomes true, that it is never again possible to say whether it is the shadow or the visitor that exits the tomb. Okay. Rhyme and remembrance and a regret. So we'll first of all take the time to catalog what we need. Keonid Abydos was my usual indicator for regret, but yeah, we're back to overflow. Okay. Now that I know what I've got in terms of time, if I want to level up rhyme and remembrance, that's a little bit like... Okay, actually, now I've got a use for the moon. So we can at least get the first one in. The next question is it worth it for me to try and do a little bit more? I never did really wind up working the sweet bones, but that's fine because we've already spent enough time there. Yeah, I think we just wait for the next day on Rhyme and Remembrance. There's nothing that immediately leaps out to me as something that I need to do. And then we can, I don't know, we'll use the Faust to feed the Stimfling, I think. So we'll still wait on the Black Book of Brittany. I feel like we can handle this. I'm a little surprised that it's taking me this long. We may even wind up reading the Radical Measure ahead of time. But the one thing I notice I haven't really done is I haven't spent a whole lot of time with the skills. But again, that's fine. I mean, we've got plenty of things we can do. There's also funny, it doesn't seem like major stuff, but it's a little bit like, you know, having a visit with some of your friends in the game. There's also little touches like, I'd kind of like to brew some tea. But of course, I'm so busy with all of the other elements of the soul that I'm not going to spend the time to actually brew the tea because I don't really need it. But it's still a nice to have. In fact, it's also good for freeing up the inventory. A full belly makes a helpful friend. This beastie is now inclined to cooperate. So we will talk with a Stimfling, just settle the last of the debts for the day, satisfy this creature's appetite. So again, not a whole lot for us to do during the day. In fact, I don't even think we'll have a memory that we take overnight with us when all is said and done. But it does set us up for sort of a clear path for tomorrow. So I suppose as an outside effort, we might try to read the Radical Measure. I think maybe I might like to put a little more effort into trying to read the Black Book of Brittany. And then perhaps I might take some time to figure out a path to clearing out a few of these texts. I don't know. I don't think it'll be easy, but it's night has fallen, dawn will come soon. I do feel like we should be able to read both of these without too much trouble. And then I suppose there was my effort to try and generate the old moment. So I think I have a pretty clear idea about how I'm going to set up for tomorrow. We'll definitely go to the Sweet Bones for a first action. We can't expect any snow, so it's not like we do anything that has a high winter requirement. But definitely we're going to use Mrs. Kill, and we'll use Mrs. Kill, and then we'll try and generate a bunch of memories to target these two books. So first things first, we'll use our metal, fixing and mending. There's not much work on offer in Brandkrug, but I can find 6 pence worth of odd jobs. We speak with Mrs. Kill. Mrs. Kill stands ready to help. You always cheer me up, she says morosely. And okay, so first thing I think I'm going to do, everything's kind of cleared out now, so now is the time for me to see realistically what am I looking for when it comes to the Black Book of Brittany. So Sickle and Eclipse is my best bet here. I wouldn't use this particular memory, but okay, so we're at 7. Now if I use the Lunar Globe, we take that up to 8, meaning we need 4 more. And then the Cat Wink, I suppose, technically gives me 1 more, but I suppose that would be an argument against using the Cat Wink in this case, because if it really comes down to a question of being at 10 and needing 12, then presumably I should be able to I should be able to rely on an extra memory. So I suppose one thing that I'll want to take, I'll get a confounding parable. From that, let's read the Moon's Egg or the other line. We'll read the Moon's Egg. And then when it comes to the radical measure, I think we're sort of in a similar state to, to the Black Book of Brittany, where we're close, but we do actually need a bit of luck on our side. I suppose technically in this case, preliminal is as good as anything else. So if we add the Lunar Globe, then we get up to 10, and we're waiting on... excuse me. We're waiting on a second one. Now, in both cases, I feel slightly better. I feel okay, but I actually feel slightly better about reading the radical measure, and that's because we know that adding a Fet will solve the problem for us, whereas adding another Tryst leaves us waiting for another entry. So I should probably see if I can tilt things towards getting a certain some more rows. I don't know. Talk to Mrs. Kill. Mrs. Kill has seen more of the world than she usually lets on. Conversations with her yield the occasional surprise. The gossip would be nice, I think, is the best style I can say for this. And if I want, I guess I could keep harvesting grapes and such, but I think right now... Oh, actually, yeah, we'll see what... I think in this case I'm going to make it a little bit like some of my more late game sessions, where I actually just kind of sit on my elements of the soul to see where things go, and then at the end of the day we sort of commit it towards things like Rhyme and Remembrance and that. So see, like Gossip has already put me in a great position for reading the radical measure. Actually so good that I'm going to do something a little reckless here, but I think overall this will work. So we will take our Fet. I'll take the Horizon Sight. I'll add the Lunar Globe. We'll attach that to Preliminal Meter. Now I know how to make an Enduring Reflection. And so when I add the radical measure, so we're short, perhaps you've provided rows, but not enough to match mystery rows. If you're lucky, you might still succeed. So we're still going to talk with Mrs. Kill, but what I'm going to do here, Mrs. Kill has seen more of the world than she usually lets on. Conversations with her yield the occasional surprise. I'm actually just going to go and get a gossip right away out of this. Or, sorry, we already have the gossip. But that's the whole reason why I did this thing. So the idea here is that there are two entries now which will get me the radical measure glossed. Either it'll ask me for a memory, at which point we use the memory gossip, or it will ask me for an element of the soul, at which point we bring the fet in. Of course, it may not ask me for either of those things, and then I just get sad, but we'll see. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. Okay, The Moon's Egg, the third and last volume of the Meditations of Abbot Thomas of the Abbey of the Black Dove. Abbot Thomas speaks of the coming death he hears in the sound of the waves, but rejoices that his own blood will water the egg of the moon, by which he seems to mean the future. The last chapter was dictated, not written, by Abbot Thomas. When Thomas' old sword brother Trigreave returned to raid the abbey, Thomas had broken his monastic oaths and taken up arms to defend the abbey. The two had both been mortally wounded. Thomas's last words are, "The wheel turns, the moon sleeps." So there's a confounding parable. So that's also another rose memory for us, although we'll have other uses for it. So for instance, Rhyme and Remembrance will take this, or we might put this to work with the Black Book of Brittany. But I do notice that we are at the half-hour mark, so I'm going to leave it there. For the next episode, what we're going to do, we will try to level up Rhyme and Remembrance, but I don't rate that as highly as being able to read the Black Book of Brittany. And then, although it's also fair to say that the lunar globe is currently occupied, so maybe I won't have as many options there, but we'll see. And then again, at that point, we maybe take a little bit of an inventory in terms of where we're at with our skills, because then I've sort of used up like things like Isaac Akarth's History of Shadowless Kings and so on and so forth. There's not a whole lot that's changed with regards to being able to read these books. So I might take the challenge. So for instance, trying to read the Kukurbit Prisoner records, I might try to get a couple of old moments together or something like that. But I figure at this would be a point where I want to actually take some time to sit and think about what I'm trying to do. So in any case, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.